Melodic language and linguistic melodies, singing in tone languages, which will be presented by Carter-Enyi of The Ohio State University. Aaron, you're up.
So here's a map of the world from the World Atlas of Language Structures, and it's a sample of 500 languages. The red dots and the pink dots are tone languages, wherein pitch contours change the meaning of words, and out of this 500 sample we have about 200 where that's the case. So this brings up some questions for music researchers, such as to what extent does language influence music and vice versa? And more specifically, what is unique about the music, particular singing, of ethno-linguistic cultures with lexical tone, where this pitch contour is important for the meaning of words. There are various units of contrast. We're most familiar in English with the phoneme, and an example is pit versus bit, wherein we have an alternation of P, a voiceless consonant, with B, a voiced consonant, which changes our mental representation from pit to bit. These have their analogs in music. Phonic is much like timbre orchestration, and then we have stress, which is like rhythm and dynamics, such as present versus present. And then we also have tone, which is like pitch or melody, which forms the tone. And an example of this is from the Igbo language, ike versus ike, which changes the mental representation from strength to buttocks. So I spent about 5 years researching the music of Nigeria and 2 years actually in Nigeria, and there's about 500 languages in Nigeria. Many in the south are tone languages, and many of them have 3 tones. So in a 3-tone language, there's 9 possibilities for 2-syllable words, because you have 3 for the first syllable, 3 for the second syllable. So if we take a homograph like IGBA and put it into the tone generator, you get 5 possibilities, and this is on the upper end. There's also other words like Igbi that don't have tonal variation. So musicians and linguists have drawn many analogs over the past century, notably Velmers, who compare the 3 tones of Jukun to the major triad, which would make this phrase sound like this. Aku pere ni se fuji asini bikere. And this is similar to the folk heuristic, the way of understanding tones among the Yoruba and southwestern Nigeria. If we take this carrier sentence, I brought you a, and then have this alternation of calabash and climbing rope, we would get a melody like this. However, it actually sounds like this. So we have intonation, and we also have downstep, which makes it actually not like a major triad or solfege. So what does this mean for music? So missionaries were very active in West Africa in the 19th century. They did a lot of great things very successfully, such as contributing to the end of the slave trade. They created Latinic orthographies for languages. They established parochial boarding schools. Not so successfully, they translated hymns for evangelism. And an example is All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name, which is often sung to diadem. All hail the power of Jesus' name. Unfortunately, they translated it metrically without worrying about the tone, and so we have some mismatch, and it becomes this. Break down the melody. Oh hakele ke Jesu. You can actually recompose it. Oh hakele ke Jesu, and then it has the correct melody. Another alternative is just to write an all new melody. Oh hakele ke Jesu. So T.K.A. Phillips, who was a Nigerian-born but Western-trained organist, wrote a treatise on composition in 1953 in which he proposed that melody should reflect the contour of text, be syllabic, not melismatic, use pentatonic scales, and that harmony should avoid cadential semitones and have a predominance of parallel harmonies. 20 years later, Ekweme proposed that there were other alternatives for harmony, including staggering text, with, as in vocal polyphony, or using alliterative sounds in subordinate voices. In 2012, Murray Schellenberg, a linguist, published an article, Does Language Determine Music in Tone Languages? And he found that traditional music has high correspondence between tone and tune, and contemporary music has low correspondence. That was a meta-study based on qualitative data that can't necessarily be compared. Based on my more quantitative analysis of Nigerian music, I found that yes, praise poetry, chanting, and recitation have high correspondence, and contemporary popular music have low correspondence. However, composers like Ekweme and Phillips write art music, and church music has high correspondence. So here's the map again, and there's much research that can be done. 60% of the world's languages are tonal, and thank you for attending my presentation. Here's my